Hello and welcome to Powered by Intuition. This is the weekly live that brings you current events commingled with intuition, what happens next, and most of all, how you can support yourself through this. So, even though I might bring up current events, there will always be nuggets of wisdom to help you navigate life wherever you are, whenever you are viewing this. And I like to think that these episodes will meet you at the right time when you need this insight. So, whenever you're listening, wherever you're listening, pay attention to the concepts and the timeless wisdom that is being shared here. And I just put out the intention that it will be there to support you. Just like how Obi is here to say hi and support me today. Honorary kitty cat. He's so cute. All right. Today's today's concept has been like an ongoing theme. Sorry, hitting my microphone for this. Hold on 1 minute. Let me adjust this microphone real quick. Okay. That is not working. Yay, floppy outfits and Italian discourse with hands. Anyways, today's theme is about human nature. It's called Human Nature F's It Up. That has been the theme. Human nature will F it up every time because we can build great things and then we decide to destroy it. So let's look at the Bible. Excuse me 1 minute. Let's think about the biblical text. When I read the Bible, I've read it 3 times cover to cover. I looked at it from behavior subsets. What are the behaviors? What is going on here? What is human nature about? And it really does lay out human nature, how people are, how people tend to behave, the negative sides and the positive aspects. And bringing in today's stuff for current time, there are the files that have been released, and you can find stuff like that in the Bible. It's there. It is definitely there. And seeing humans still do these things is not a good thing. It's not what anybody wants, except for those people that want to do it. And it is not helping us in any way, shape, or form. Now let's backtrack to scripture and let's see scripture as an allegory. I'm going to bring up 2 different sections. First one is the Garden of Eden. When the Garden of Eden, humanity is in this space and there is a lack of contentment. There's a lack of wanting to stay in the state that they are. Whether that's the snake, whether that's our inner sort of way of being, they decide to eat the fruit of knowledge, of truth and knowledge, or bad and good, whatever. You understand what I'm saying here if you've read it. And so that changes everything about humanity. That's kind of where that allegory really stands complete, as in we can have utopia, we could have everything, we could have world peace, and we will just come in. Sorry, having issues. Obi, I need you to. And we will just come in and we will find a way to mess it up. We had world peace. We had everything. It was perfection. It was utopia. It was Eden. And we fucked it up. Right? But then we would lose things. We would lose a shred of our autonomy. We would lose who we've become today. We would lose creativity. We would lose aspects of what has been hardwired within human nature that sets us apart from everything else in nature, right? There are those distinct things where we're different. And no matter how far we've tried to cut ourselves off from nature and externalize ourselves from it by combining substances and making things that we deem as new, it's still from nature. You can see ants build households. You can see birds combine different materials to create nests. It's not outside of nature, but we're a little more ambitious. We have that aspect of discontent to push us to explore, to create new things, to constantly up level, cause more problems, or cause great things to happen. More problems or great solutions. This is hardwired within our differences and what makes us human. Now, the other allegory for this is the Tower of Babel, where humans came together, we built this amazing thing, and then God's like, no. But it's that allegory again, where, God like pretty much flips a switch and then everything goes to hell, right? Well, it doesn't go to hell, but it's dismantled, it's diffused, it is no longer happening. And that is also another allegory for human nature. We can come together and build these amazing things, and then somehow that flip switches and we dismantle it, we destroy it. That's kind of what's happening now. That human nature has come in, that switch is flipped, and now we're on something different. And that switch could flip for a good reason. So right now things seem chaotic. There are very bad things that have been revealed. Very heartbreaking things, very destructive things. And I've heard people have said, well, if we go after all the people in those files, everything we have will collapse. And I'll say to that, it needs to. It needs to collapse. If that's what society leads to, that is not a way to be. It needs to collapse. It needs to be done with. It needs to be done, period. Society will always find a way. Human resilience will always find a way. But this is where humanity really should fuck it up and dismantle and destroy the whole thing, if that is what's going on with these files. It's how we make more problems, and then other humans end up coming through and solving it and innovating and creating new things. There's always that balance of there's a negative aspect and there's a positive aspect. Even with people, you can see their negative aspects, but then look at, well, how did they get there? What did they do to make that happen? How did they bring people together for this negative aspect? And then you can extrapolate those insights into something positive, to shift the tide into something better, to utilize what you've learned from that bad event and use it for good. There's circumstances and systems are inert. There's ways to leverage them in many different ways. Some people use them for negative aspects, and in that regard, there are people that can use them for positive aspects. And even if it's used for negative aspects, that's still data. So look at things from that perspective of how can we make things better? How can we renew this? What can we use? What is inert from that can be utilized in a better way? Let me see. there is something very fascinating. And there's also a lot of, within my circles, there's a lot of communication about uh, where AI will bring us. And a lot of people are concerned. And as long as we don't destroy ourselves, although a lot of people are attempting to do that, which is very fascinating to look at these systems that are coming through and what does the future hold? What does this look like with AI? And it can look many different ways. There are many possibilities. There's never one cut and dry possibility of like, it's this way or nothing. But I will propose one where I see governance coming through more utilizing AI. And that shift levels the playing field for humanity. That shift can cause huge ripples. And of course, that's going to cause huge discontent because people enjoy that feeling of power. That's an aspect of why people mess things up if they feel slighted. There will be discontent. If they feel jealous, there will be discontent. If there's coveting, there will be discontent. And that discontent can either come through in a way of, I'm going to work towards making this for myself, or I'm going to work towards breaking that down. And in that aspect, that is something to be careful of who you're around. But in that aspect, there is an understanding that as long as we don't completely detonate, a nuke and destroy this entire planet, as long as it exists, humanity will find a way through whatever happens. Exemptions aside. Because that's who we are and that's how we are. That's how we're built. There have been multiple resets on this planet. There have been dark ages. And in that regard, people still got through that. And it does take looking at history to really have an understanding of the future. And it's not quite seeing the future, although some people might be able to do that. Some people might be able to manipulate society to bring about a future. But we don't really know what the future holds. But we can know human nature because that pattern is consistent throughout history. There are cycles that are consistent throughout history. There are patterns consistent with nature that we can rely on or count on. These patterns exist. And so, within that regard, begin to pay attention to these things. Begin to pay attention to these behaviors. And no matter what, don't let things hold you back. Don't let these things stop you. So, let me see. Now, human nature, and I like to say this, the meaning of life is to create. We are constantly creating things, whether you are creating bowel movement or a meal or an art or writing, doing spreadsheets. We are creative beings. That is what we are. That is the meaning of life, is to create. And if we let go of that, that's where we begin to regress as a species, when we stop creating. So continue to create. continue to move forward in your life, continue to shift things for the better, continue to speak up, continue to make your surroundings a better place. And that takes community, that takes connection. It takes an aspect of coordination. We are each leaders in our own spaces. I'm the leader of this space. I have crafted and curated it into a space that is authentically me. Painting the wall, putting up this frame, there's lights in the frame that I put in. That is an act of creation. That is an act of being in alignment with myself. And that is something that needs to be achieved. That is an aspect of overcoming this fear of change. And a lot of people fear change. And change is one thing that we can count on. You can count on change happening, whether if it's from us or from disasters or from serendipitous events, even just aging. Change is something you can count on. And knowing that, what are you doing, kitty? Knowing that change is something we can count on, you got to begin to work with it. That's where the aspect of creating comes in. When you can create, you are leveraging and utilizing change to your best abilities. Hi, Starling. I have a cute little kitty peeking out here. All right. But begin to work with change. When you work with change, you are going to come out on top rather than constantly dealing with the whole situation of survivalism. A lot of people keep themselves stuck in survival instead of beginning to leverage change through creativity. Leverage change through creativity. Change can support you or change can be your downfall. Use change to support yourself and others. It is always something you can count on. That is a constant. That is one of the patterns that you can see as you look at history. There's these cycles, change, right? Yet we stay stuck in wanting to hold on to things as they are and not embracing change, not leveraging change. Leveraging change is like how you plant seasonal crops. And instead, you can look in the grocery store of how we try to fight that leveraging by importing fruits and vegetables from other countries. Might not necessarily be the best thing for us. Because when you leverage that change of the seasons, winter fruits and vegetables are there to support you specifically through that time period. Pumpkins last the entire winter. I'm actually finishing a batch of pumpkins that have literally lasted the winter. They're designed for that. The seasons have been crafted and curated specifically for us, yet we try to defy that, right? That's an aspect of human nature. But if we utilize change and work with it, it works to our betterment, for our health, for what we're eating, for what we're ingesting. Fascinating how that happens. So it's connecting all these little dots and coordinating with them. When we work with nature instead of against nature, things operate often better. If we work with understanding, okay, weather is getting intense and crazy and odd and chaotic and different, then you can begin to count on that and move in that direction. And that's part of letting intuition in, right? Understanding the human nature, understanding who you really are. We're not quite like animals, even though some people want to live as if they're animals and look to being primal as some sort of elevation, even though it's a de-evolution. We have to understand who we really are, understand your identity authentically, not as people have told you what it is. Connecting with that too can help you to move forward in a way that also embraces change. If you don't know yourself enough to know how to adapt to changes, it's going to be a lot harder for you. There was an interesting conversation that I had a couple nights ago where I mentioned, yeah, I've been all over the entertainment industry. I just don't do the bow chicka bow bow aspect, the PORN. And I was speaking with a gentleman. He's like, how much? I was like, what? How much would it take for you to do that? 100 million? Or, like do numbers, 1,000, 100,000, million, 100 million, a billion? I said no every time. It's a hard no. It's a hard no. He sprouted off all his money like that. No, 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 no. That's because I have my identity, my values intact. I know what the consequences are of doing something like that on my career. I don't want to deal with the fallout of that. If I did, sure, right? I don't want to. That's not for me. That's not who I am. That's not something that I would ever even want to do, no matter what amount of money you would give me. Could I use the money? Sure. Do I want that money? No, because I'm not going to do that. And that is living in integrity and honor with myself to not do that, no matter what someone's willing to offer for it. It's not worth it. It's not worth sacrificing my values and my identity to do something like that. Be in that space. Be in that space of understanding who you authentically are and know what you need to say no to and what you need to say yes to. And it's values, not principles. You need to understand your value quadrant. I know that I make money, I receive money daily. I can make money easily. Lots of money, not there yet. That'll happen. But I know my capabilities, I know my skills, and I've honed in on them. And my skills are constantly dynamic and constantly evolving. I'm constantly learning and growing because that I know is what's going to get through these times of upset and chaos. I am plug and play into where I need to go and who I need to support and what I need to do. And that's living life to the fullest because I'm in alignment with who I am and my values. And once you are in alignment with that, you're kind of doing a little different from the human nature. You're kind of deviating a little from that chaotic behaving, that snap reaction, those lynch mobs, those behaviors that aren't serving us anymore. And it's an aspect of enlightenment once you begin to see these things and begin to unravel. They begin to open up to you in new ways of understanding for yourself. There are people who've talked about this in the past, but for you, these things will begin to open up and present almost like enlightenment. I can't really say it's enlightenment, just in the aspect of saying it's enlightenment, kind of dulls the ideas of enlightenment. But coming to the theme, it has been very funny and fun, kind of just being like hearing these concerns of people and these weird aspects, and then just coming forth, well, yeah, human nature will fuck it up every time. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, but most often or not, it'll lead to that commingling where you can either look at the good things and focus on those, or you can look at the bad and devastating things and get lost in that. It's a strange space. I'm not going to say it's easy to kind of go through almost that cognitive dissonance where you have to hold and weigh both the good and the bad. There are horrific things that have happened that I wouldn't be here today had they not. I'm going to repeat that again. There are horrific things that have happened, and I wouldn't be here today had they not. Had colonization not taken place, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be in this space. What would life be like? I don't know. I don't know if I would have existed. But I have an idea of what history is. I know what my history is. And that is what I can go off of to be like, wow, that really sucks. And wow, I can see how if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be here today. And it's a strange, strange space to be in. But I can hold that space and I can hold that gratitude and I can look forward and understand there will be a future so long as the earth and this space exists, so long as there's a tomorrow and a day after that. So these are just some things to consider, to sit with, to reflect on, and let me know if you got something from this. Let me know if you got any sort of insights that have supported you or if you need some more help. Also, if you haven't checked out the Resilience Journal yet, go ahead, check that out. You can either see that in my profile or link is in the description if you're on YouTube. But I am wrapping up now, and I just want to say thank you. I get to go have some dinner right now because it's been a long day. It's actually been a fun day. But I hope that you are well and that you stay well and that you be well. And if you need any meditations, they are on my YouTube page, or if you're viewing on TikTok, go check it out over there too. But I wish you well and I wish you the best. Let me know what insights you might have gotten from this, and I look forward to connecting and communicating with you. So have a good night. Thank you for joining.